falling, but you still want to catch fish. You're paying for that vacation. It's not cheap. So you want to catch fish. What do? You go to your walking baits. You go to the jackpot, the Havana jack. You go to the attack bait. You go to baits that walk back and forth. Now, to work those baits, you're going to drop your rod tip almost like you're working jerk bait. But you're going to have shorter swings down with the rod, and you're going to take up about maybe a turn and a quarter, depending on how your reel is spooled, for every time you drop it. The beauty of that is the lure's doing this. Boom, the boom, the boom, the boom, the boom. In the world of a muskie, there's two different types of forage that the muskie pertains to. One's called sea strike, one's called fast strike, okay? The fast strike would be like a walleye. If they're preying on walleyes coming up on a sandbar and they move in on them and the muskie misses it, that walleye goes and slides off. Northern pike. If a muskie comes up and that northern pike is in its line of sight and he misses it, it's gone. If a cisco, a tulip, a crappie, a smallmouth, any of the others don't get eaten on the first chance, what do? They turn 90 degrees to evade predation. Those are your sea strikes forage. What's the most preferred forage of a muskie? It's not northern pike. It's not walleye. It is crappie, cisco, tulip. It is the fish that's a sea strike, right? So why don't we apply that knowledge and do that when we're working our lures? If my fish is, my muskie is sitting there going, okay, that's real, it's real, it's real, I'm going to take that. That sea strike is very natural, and it's a provoker. It brings that fish up into the column and makes it eat. So side by side. Now there's one addition that you have to do if you're working the top water on the walking bait, is you want that lure to talk. What I mean by that is every time you drop the tip and take that line up, you should hear kabloop, kabloop, kabloop. If you're doing that, you're working the lure properly, or your lure is the right lure. If it's not, and all it's doing is chances are pretty good it's not going to be as effective. Let me tell you about the giant jackpot. I developed the giant jackpot way back in the mid-90s. I developed this lure because I was fishing at Osborne Bay on Century Lodge on Osborne Bay, Eagle Lake. We're in this little area that we like to fish, and this garter snake was coming out. It's coming out of the shoreline, and it was sitting there doing this. You know how garter snakes swim? And I'm watching this snake, well, that's kind of crazy. And all of a sudden, nowhere, this fish comes up and hammers this snake. No, wait a minute, back up. So anyway, I decided, weeks later, I decided I'm going to mimic that. If that is something that is so provoking in nature, we're going to make something work here. So I go to the wood shop and I start working on lures, right? Make this lure to make what's called the giant jackpot. The jackpot comes out, we put it on the water. Guido and Dion Hibden see me, I'm fishing a bass tournament, and Dion comes up to me and he says, Bob, did you know you're throwing a giant Sahara spook? And I says, in essence, that's what it is. But it's weighted different, it talks different, it walks different, it's not the same. Visually it looks about the same, but it's not the same. I take the lure to the water, and I'm there, and I'm doing this, little twitches, and I'm swinging this thing back like that little fancy snake was, and I'm back at it for 2 years. 2 years, you know how many muskies I caught? Zero, not one. So I'm doing pike shows, man, I'm just slamming big pike, 45, 46, 42, 44 inches, zero muskies. I'm fishing with my brother. We're up on Lac Sewell before Lac Sewell was even known. We're up there probing around years before people knew about it. So I'm up there with my brother. Water temperature is very cold, 66 degrees. Again, let's go back to that water temp. 66 degrees at the bottom threshold of the fish. So I'm working my lure, he's working my lure. He says, hey, Bob. And I says, yeah. What's your best lure in, because we had zero fish in the boat for 2 days. Zero, not one. He says, what's your best lure in 66 degree water from us? Because as a Mike, there isn't one. 66 degree water, I was sitting in the cabin. I mean, to be honest with you, you can't catch a fish in 66 degree water. It's too cold. The fish doesn't want to respond. He said, malarkey. I said, seriously? He said, I didn't ask you what your best musky bait was. I asked you what your best bait was. And my brother isn't a professional fisherman. So I says, well, jackpot. I'm going to throw a post giant jackpot. Okay, so he puts this giant jackpot on a 6-foot rod, throws it off the back of the boat, and he's back there going, kaboom, 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 kaboom. And I, whoa, stop. What do you mean stop? I said, no, quiet. Just make it swing. Make it swing. So he makes a swing a little couple of times, right? Next thing I know, it's kaboom, 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 kaboom. The whole world just explodes. And all of a sudden, we got a 48-incher in the bag. And I'm going, whoa, what just happened here? He's younger than me, I'm smarter than him. What's going on? So he turns around, and he puts another half a dozen more casts. We put the fish back, and half a dozen more casts. He's out there, kaboom, kaboom. Now me, I'm the astute one, right? I'm standing in the front of the boat going, what are you doing? Okay. Kaboom! Number 2. It's 2 fish in less than 10 minutes, and we had none in the boat for, I never look back. I don't swish, swish, swish my topwaters anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I make it talk, okay? Because that audible is partly what makes it work. When you think about an injured or a wounded bait fish that's up on the surface and they're flopping around, are they quiet when they flop around? Not really. They're making a little noise. Well, that giant jackpot or the Havana jack or even the attack dog make those great noises. That's just a little history on it. Topwater baits, swing baits, when you got cooling water or very cold water. Draw baits when you got nice warming and steady conditions will produce better. That's why we did it on the Awaker. When we designed the Awaker, we got the fish to 6.5. That's how we did that. So bottom line, okay, let's talk a little bit about bucktails real quick. Uh-oh, check device. Don't worry about it. We don't need that crazy thing anyway. It's not gonna work. All right, bucktails. How many in here throw bucktails? How many know what a bucktail is? Show of hands, yeah? All right. Years and years and years ago, a guy by the name of Mark Wendells really put bucktails as we know it on the map, okay? The Wendells harasser. Single little blade and very little hair on it because he's a bucktail. Very little hair on it. And he did one thing with it. Mark Wendells was a master at speed. Speed, and those were days before we had the high-speed reels. But Mark Wendells learned how to make a bait fly. And that being said, he caught a lot of fish. Mark Wendells was notorious for a while with this bait. Well, as the evolution of this happens, and those of us in the industry start looking around, the bucktail as we know it today, the blades that we know it today, actually come out of the saltwater world. So if we look at some of those saltwater blades and start to apply them over to our musky, we see our blades getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But you know why they were getting bigger and bigger and bigger? Because we as a musky fraternity, we as an angler, we're learning not to kill every 40-inch or 30-inch fish we caught. We put them back. Well, we put those fish back, what they do, they grew. Well, at that time we knew, we started to learn that a 44, 45-inch musky is about as big as a male fish will get. And they don't even reproduce until they're about 38 to 40 inches. So we learned that we're putting back a reproductive society of fish back in the lake again. All that said, what happened as a result of that? Our target fish got bigger. No longer were we comfortable seeing a 30-incher. Now all of a sudden it's a 40-incher or 45. And then as the years go by, it's, wow, I'm hunting 50s, man. I ain't paying any attention to these 40-inchers anymore. That's because we evolved as an angler, and our fishery evolved because of the biology, the management of the ministry and of the state DNRs, but we became a better society of anglers. So when that happened, what did we have to do to catch fish? We had to make our lures bigger. Why did we make the lures bigger? Because muskies eat 1/3 of their length of the body on a normal forage. So let's just use a real easy one to work with, 45 inches. A 45-inch muskie is going to eat 15 inches without thinking twice about it. And here we're throwing Mark Wendells' little 3-incher or 4-incher or muskie candy, which is a Ted Ruse bait, which is an awesome bait. But again, it's a speed bait. So speed is a trigger, speed works. But it doesn't necessarily probe the monster fish that we're looking for. Our monster fish are in the weed beds. Our monster fish are on the outside of the breaks. Our monster fish are up on the saddles. Our monster fish are in the island clusters. That's where our monster fish are. So that being said, how do we catch them? You upscale. Here come the blades. Maybe a decade ago, maybe 15 years ago, I was over to George Wall's place. George Wall made the eagle tail, okay? Those of you who fish know what George Wall's eagle tail was. It was really just 2 single Sashaw hooks, big hooks, saltwater hooks, right? He did that for a very particular reason. George was a solitary fisherman. He fished alone. He never, hardly ever fished with anybody. And if he ever got hooked up, he didn't want to be hooked up with trebles. And I said to him one day, George, would you rather be hooked up with in those days 4-aught was big, would you rather be hooked up with a 4-aught so you can cut it, or this saltwater hook that takes a bolt cutters to cut? And he says, well, I can avoid the single hook easier. That was his reason, and that's fine. But that being said, when those hooks got bigger, the bait got bigger, the blades got bigger, and George was actually the first person that I'm aware of that tried to put 2 blades on one bait. You guys are knowing where I'm going with this, okay? He was the first one, but he didn't think about reversing the clevises to make the thing interlock. We weren't aware of it in those days, and it flopped. George lost total interest in it. I didn't think about it much further. I'm throwing more spinner baits than I am bucktails, bigger profile. That being said, he turns around, loses it, doesn't pay attention to it. Along comes another company who learned, whether it was through experimentation or if it was just sheer intelligence or whatever the case may be, they developed the interlocking blades. Now you got 2 blades that are spinning in unison. How many throw double blade baits? 1? How many throw double blade baits? 1, 2, 3, 4? I'm telling you right now, folks, 5. I'm telling you right now, if you're not throwing a double blade bait, you need to look into them. I don't care who makes it. You got 8s, you got 10s, you got 11s. I think there's 12 size blades out there. Every one of those blades, the bigger it gets, the harder it is to pull. Just remember that. So that being said, what happens? Our bait gets bigger, longer, bigger blades. Now we're starting to satisfy that 15-inch offering that Muskie's eating on. Now we're paying attention to its desires and not playing our desires. And then along comes the bucktail rods that we use today. Along comes the reels that we use today. I threw Shimano for most of my career. I throw Daiwa, but just stay with a quality reel. Don't get too overwhelmed on it. I'm throwing the Daiwa, the regular 5-to-1 on my big blades, no problem. But I'm not trying to burn them. If I want to burn the bait, I'm going to go to a smaller blade. I'm going to go to an 8, a Colorado blade, not a big thumping blade. An 8, a double 8, will have a lot higher vibration to it, a lot more signal spins out into the weeds. It's a triggering device, much like that topwater coming over that cabbage. It's doing the same thing. You're initiating that fish. You're engaging that fish. That's what Wendell's was doing. But Wendell's was doing it when we had a smaller society of fish in all reality. We're doing the same thing with the doubles. Now, when you run 2 blades that are interlocking, if you ever watch what's going on behind it, let's say you have 2 marabou bodies, okay? 2 marabou bodies, double interlocking blades. Watch it come through the water, okay? When you throw a single blade, I don't care whose it is, throw a single blade bait, that whatever that material is just lays back. It just basically streams behind the blades, right? Pay attention, it streams behind it. It's a very thin, unnoticeable profile. As soon as you put 2 interlocking blades together, now that body does this. It grows because you create a negative vortex behind the blades. It's literally a low pressure system behind your blades, and it'll suck that material right straight up to the blades. A good manufacturer knows not to allow that material to get to the blades. They make it just short so it can't get there. So now what you've done is you've taken your single blade to a double blade, you've taken your little body to a bigger body, and you've enhanced more profile for the big fish. You have played their game. However, those bigger blades that do this, their thump is low, their presence is dynamic, and they don't necessarily need to be fast. If you've watched any of my shows over the years, I've shot 700 plus television shows, and I produced so many videos, the strike zone, the anatomy, the musky matrix, so many different educational videos. You need to look into it because there's so much wealth there. But the truth of the matter is that double blades permeates smaller footprint, a bigger footprint with a more solidable sound. An elephant, for instance. One elephant can hear another elephant. How many in here know how far one elephant can hear another one? No? 10 miles, folks. 10 miles. That's how one elephant herd knows there's water on the Sahara deserts in Africa. That's how they know, because they can hear one another 10 miles away. Well, the same thing is true with those big blades. Those big blades throw out this long, big thump, 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 thump through the water. Now, what does that mean to you? That means you're going to slow things down. You're going to attract a bigger forage, and that fish is going to come from a larger footprint and from deeper into the weed beds if they're down. Bright sunny day, for instance. That bright sunny day we're talking about, fish is out there, it's down in the weed beds. You're pulling this thing back. You don't want to move it fast. Look at me. Do I look like I run the 100-mile marathon? Yes, thank you. He's a liar too, okay? Just so you know. All right, just so you know. I'm not going to chase a hamburger. I'm going to go to the counter where the hamburger can be served, okay? Same thing with these big fish. Big fish are not speed demons. They're not chasing. If you can get their attention, they're catchable. But they're not chasing. Those little 38, 40, 42, 45 inches, yeah, they'll chase. They'll get on you. Those are the male fish that we're talking about. They'll get on you. They'll chase. Oh, eat that thing. Those big fish, they lollygag. They sit back and they watch this thing come in, and they're paying close attention to it. And if you're paying close attention, you will learn where that fish is relative to your bait. So your lure is moderately coming back. It's not super fast. You got your blades spinning. They're doing their thing. Your body, whatever it is, whether it's mylar or hair marabou, it doesn't really matter. But it's large. It's mimicking that 4-pound sucker that's going through the water. That's what that fish is used to eating. Or maybe even that 4-pound smallmouth. Let's be honest, they eat them, okay? So that's what you're simulating with that lure. So now you've got its attention. You're paying close attention. You got it coming back. Now you take it in. What are we doing next? We're going into figure 8, right? Figure 8 goes down and up, down and up, down and up. We're triggering the next set of feeding devices. That fish is there. You know it's there. You've got its name, address, telephone number, and zip code. That's your fish to catch or lose right then and there. We said earlier that we're going to back away from the fish. Remember, if it didn't eat, our next move after that is to maybe position, say from here to the wall down there. Protect your spot. There's a lot of competition for good musky spots, okay? And I say good musky spots because musky spots can be good musky spots. That being said, kind of guard your position. Don't let somebody come in on your hot fish. Just kind of sit back, kind of guard yourself. 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes if you can hold on that long. And then you slide back in again. The person who brought the fish up throws the same bait. Do not change that bait. Do not change the speed that you brought that bait in on. And do not change the position you threw. A lot of anglers, and I've had a lot of anglers on the boat with me over the years, they don't pay attention to what's going on. When you're throwing for muskies, it's important to know when I made my cast, I landed it on that round table over there. I need to know that. My next cast is going to the bumper of that blue truck right there. My next cast is going to the tailgate of that white one. I know that. I know where my bait landed. Why is that important? Because that fish was there, wherever it was, for a reason. They're not arbitrary. There's something about it. It's a log, it's a rock. Maybe there's even an open sand spot. But whatever the case may be, that fish is using that specific area for a reason. Your next cast after reapproach is to the same spot. The person in the back of the boat should be armed with 2 or 3 different rods. 1 rod top water, 1 rod bucktail spinnerbait, 1 rod jerkbait. Get ready, because if you come in and your fish doesn't appear, then that guy in the back of the boat is going to send it home, because he or she is going to change baits. Boom, jerkbait, 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 jerkbait. Maybe 2 or 3 casts. Boom, pick it up. Next spinnerbait, spinnerbait. Here goes the bobcat. The big bobcat's going out there from Grim Reaper lures. You're bringing this bobcat back. Boom, 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 boom. And it's got monster blades on it. All of a sudden, this fish shows, and boom, you got it. But the guy in the back of the boat has a tendency to say, I want to throw the same bait you threw. No, don't do that. If the guy in the front of the boat catches the fish, good Lord, that's what it's all about. Bag the fish for him, make it a good day. I will tell you this. I spent an entire year in the back of the boat one year because everybody, not everybody, some people would write my TV show and go, you know why you catch all these big fish? No, I really don't. Well, it's because you're the first one to fish. That's not necessarily true. What is true is if the water temperatures are rising, the guy in the front of the boat is going to have a higher probability. But if your temperatures are falling and the fish is reluctant, which is what that follow indicated, the guy in the back of the boat actually has the advantage. If that fish comes in, doesn't come in on your original offering, and she's low and you can't even see her, that jackpot or that spinnerbait or that jerkbait down below the surface will make all the difference. Perfect example. Osborne Bay again. I'm sorry I mentioned Osborne Bay again, but it's an amazing fishery. And if you know the tyrants up there at Century Lodge, you will not fish with a better family in your life, okay? That being said, I got Jim Gracka. Jim Gracka's in the boat with me. 5 days on the water. I had 2 camera boats on the water, my boat on the water. We had no 50-inch fish. Our biggest fish in the boat was 48. My general manager is with me, Rich Tuomi. A couple of other people with Dr. John was with. And we were at the cabin at the last day, and I said, hey, everybody, go pack up the Suburbans. Everybody take camera equipment, take cases, take everything. Go put stuff in Suburbans. Jim and I are going to fish our way back to the landing. We're not leaving this lake without the last-ditch effort. Jim Grack is in the boat with me. I'm in the front. Cold water. I'm talking August, 69-degree water. That's miserably cold for August. So we come into this corner. I'm throwing a jackpot. Kaboom, 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 kaboom. Muskie comes up and she rolls like this underneath the bait. She didn't have her mouth open. I'm watching. She did not have her mouth open. She come up and she did one of these things right underneath the bait. And I'm going, boom, boom, come on, baby, come on, come on, come on, come on, baby, come on, come on. I'm talking strange languages up there, to be honest with you. And all of a sudden I said to Jim, get ready, get ready. What do you mean? I said, just get ready. So Jim's throwing back a big spinnerbait, right? He's got this big spinnerbait. I said, slow it down. So I slowed it down. I said, just keep it coming. He's throwing the lure I designed for Strike King, the Magnum King. So he's bringing back the Magnum King, he's coming back. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he starts to lift it up. And the muskie that did this to me was under his. She had fallen down in the column. She didn't like this. I got her attention, but she didn't want it. That spinnerbait all of a sudden became part of that muskie. And I looked over as quick as I could. I went, oh my God, he's got it. And he set the hook up on it like this. And I came, again, go to my YouTube channel, you'll see it. She comes up like this, and I looked over and I grabbed for the net, and I stuck the net underneath the fish. Just as she come out of the water, she's tail walking right inside the boat, and the lure comes flying out of the water. Fish goes kabloop in the bag. Jim says, I got it, I got it. I said, no, you didn't. You got half of it. I got the other half. Don't you ever forget it. That was Jim's first 50 inches, 52 and a half inches. We got back to the truck. Now, we were not gone more than 10 minutes, 15 minutes. My cameraman goes, yeah, thank God we're done. So we get back to the Suburbans. We're loading everything. Chris says, what are you doing back? Jim Jacket gets off the boat. He goes, yeah, I got a 52. I says, you did what? We got a 52. So everybody, he clapped and applauded. We went about our business. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes we make kind of silly mistakes. We see a lure catch a fish or bring a fish in, we throw the same thing. Mix it up. There's other fish out there that aren't paying attention. Let me give you one last thing in closing. What time is it?
You have 20 minutes.
I have 20 minutes. I can't give you. I got a little bit more time. How many want to hear more? All right, then we're going to do it. Okay, that being said, here, when you get on a big body of water, how many fish big bodies of water? Okay, let's be serious about it. Okay, got a couple, right? More of you should fish big bodies of water, and I'll tell you why. Big bodies of water offer a greater supply of forage, a greater supply of roaming for the fish, and a chance for multiple societies, okay? The smaller the system, the less likely you're going to have great societies. That's just a fact, okay? That being said, you're looking at your map, right? Let's use Lake of the Woods. Let's just use Lake of the Woods. You got your big map out, right? You got Lake of the Woods. Lake of the Woods, you use the core maps, the Marine Corps maps, the MNR. Don't use fishing hotspots or any of this, they're garbage. Go with the real McCoy. When you open that real McCoy and you roll it out and you're looking at it, When you look at that map, there's one thing that pops out. Can anybody tell me what that is? Reeves? Try again. Anything? There's one thing that pops out. It pops out so brilliantly you couldn't miss it. What is it? What is it? You hit it. Shallow. On those maps, there's blue. Blue indicates shallow. It's danger. Now, what does that shallow mean to you? Anybody tell me? Not necessarily. It's bigger than that. Anybody tell me what that shallow means? Reproduction. That's where these fish spawn. Okay, the natural home range of a muskie is about 8 square miles. That's the natural home range in a shield. So if you've got an area over here that's got, let's use Miles Bay for instance, Babagon Bay. You look up in there, you see all that blue. That's shallow. Shallow is spawning. You see that spawning. What you got? You got natural reproduction. Reproduction. How many can tell me how many muskies survive in the wild that are born in the wild? Anybody? A percentage. How many? What's the percentage? What do you think? 40%. Anybody else? Anybody else? 1/2 of 1%. 1/2 of 1%. An average big muskie, a 50-inch, 48-inch fish will drop 250,000 eggs. You do the math. 1/2 of 1% will survive to 30 inches. 1/2 of 1%. Now that's Mother Nature's way of protecting its own resource. If you had this cannibalistic critter throughout the entire lake, obviously it's not going to work. It's like eagles. How many eagles do you see if you're not in a certain spot in Alaska? How many eagles do you see? Very few, right? All right, how many grizzly bears do you see in a given area? Very few, right? It's just the way nature is. It's the rhythm of nature. Same thing is true with muskies. So that being said, you got this area. You got reproduction going on year after year after year. Now keep it in mind, some years are better than others. This year, for instance, up by us, it's going to be a banner spawn. You know how much snow there is in Minnesota right now? 0. We have no snow, and it might be a little bit coming down today, as I heard, but 0. Okay, so that means our spring is going to be a rainy spring, going to be a runoff, everything's going to be right for a good reproductive cycle. So the next thing you look for on that map, you see this blue. The next thing you look for is what? Can anybody tell me what I'm looking for now? I'm focused on reproduction, population. What's next? I have to have reasonable structure to support the society, because the society is an eater, okay? So I'm looking for island clusters. I'm looking for outside of these spawning areas. Oh, look at this, an island, a reef, an island. Look at that saddle, whoa. I just defined the perfect place. These fish that reproduce up here, as soon as that reproduction cycle's done, they migrate out. Now that spawning is done, they got to start eating. They come out here, they're eating on the smallmouth and the walleye and the perch and everything else that's out here. These clusters of islands, because they're so intricate, offer a greater opportunity of a food shelf, a smorgasbord, if you will. And those fish use it. Here comes the fall turnover, they go right back in again, or they go deep, and then they come in and spring again to spawn. So the societies start to develop in these areas. There are numerous areas like this all over these lakes, numerous of them. Excuse me. Oh man. So that being said, that's going to give you a heads up on everybody else. You'll hear people say, I got a milk run. They're fishing a big lake. Let's say Lake of the Woods. I got a milk run. Really? Yeah, I start over here and I go over here and I go down here and I go down here. Why do you do that? Well, because I saw one here in 88 and I saw one here in 92 and I saw one here in 97. Okay, have fun. I look for my island clusters and I spend 8 hours in my island clusters. And I find a 46, a 45, a 48, a 51, a 52 in my cluster. My boat may not have moved more than a quarter mile all day. All day. Now I may run 30 miles to get to it, but I'm fishing it. I'm not gunning and running. Now some people do that. Tournament fishermen are a different crew. They can't afford to stay in one place and do what we do. So that being said, once you locate these kind of areas, you fish Osborne Bay, right? Okay, when you come out of Osborne, Nivens, and you go underneath the bridge, and you come out the first island cluster you see out there, bingo! That's what we're talking about.
You're live on YouTube right now.
Oh, I am. Okay, well, we just told everybody on YouTube where to go catch them on Osborne Bay or Eagle Lake, okay? Out of Randy Tyron, Rich Tyron, and Kay Tyron, out of their camp at Century Lodge. But that's an amazing, and it's exactly what we're talking about. If those of you who fish Lake in the Woods, right? How many fish down at Sabaskong Bay? Sabaskong Bay offers the same thing. Get up in Miles, get up in a Babagon. Excuse me, have exactly the same thing. You go further up the lake into the Tug. The Tug, by the way, is where I caught my first world record muskie, is up in the Tug. So you'll find I focus on these, and I've been focusing on this for generations, not just yesterday. And that's how come I have 119 over 50 inches. Now here's the difference. There's a lot of people today, they'll say, well, I've got 60 muskies over 50 inches. Yeah, where are you fishing? Well, I'm fishing off a charter boat on Lake Erie, and you got 12 lines out, and you're dragging lures. I'm throwing one lure, one rod, casting. I don't pay any attention to multiple rods or anything else. Then you got the other guys that throw up. I'm using live bait. That's fine. Don't use your live bait. I use nothing but artificial. Period. For me, muskie fishing is the hunt. It's the hunt. Now I'm going to say something that I probably shouldn't. I'm going to get in trouble for it. God help me, but here's the truth. Today we're inundated with technology. Forward-facing sonars and all this kind of stuff, live scope and all this kind of stuff. Truth of the matter is, none of that stuff would have been any value to me catching 90% of the muskies I've caught. Zero. Because I'm not focusing on where those elements really pertain. I don't think you could use that stuff where I fish. I don't think you could. I don't think it would work, to be honest with you. I think they would avoid it. And that's fine. Avoid it, because I'll come in and catch a fish. I don't care. And another thing too, the more you learn about what to do, the less likely you are to depend on technology. Let's say you have a real dependence on this new technology, and your technology fails on you when you get to your favorite place for vacation. You're pulling your hair out. Oh, I gotta get somebody to fix this. I gotta do this. I gotta do. No. Drop your trolling motor and go fishing. Go back to fishing. Now, if you're fishing the MLF or you're fishing the Elite Series or whatever the case may be, and you have to use this to compete against, 50 or 60 of the other best in the world, then that's fine. That's a whole different world. But for what we do as musky fishermen, I don't see real value in it. You may be able to, run to a lake and drop your trolling motor and, scan. Okay, there's one there, I'm going to throw to it. But let's be honest about it. That's not fishing. Not for me. The hunt is what it's all about for me. I will continue to hunt these big fish till the day I die. I'm looking forward to relocating in Tennessee so I can start terrorizing the muskies in Kentucky, Tennessee. I cannot wait to go down there and beat up on those fish. I can't do it. Ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, I hope I didn't bore you to death. This afternoon is going to be a totally different display of what we're talking about up here. Some of it will fact. I think this is important. With that being said, God bless everybody. Thanks for allowing me to come into Milwaukee and talk muskies. I appreciate it. Thank you very, very much.